You know, when the sun finally dips below that dense canopy of the Amazon basin, the forest, it doesn't go to sleep. It wakes up.
Oh, absolutely. That transition from day to night is when the real hierarchy of the jungle is established.
Right. Like, for you listening, just picture standing there in the twilight. You're surrounded by this endless expanse of emerald vegetation, and this thick, suffocatingly humid mist just starts rolling off the dark river.
And the air feels heavy, right? It's almost vibrating with that deafening symphony of insects and, those haunting calls from unseen birds.
Yeah, exactly. It's a beautiful facade.
Right.
But beneath all that serene beauty, there is this ruthless, constant struggle for survival unfolding. I mean, in this primordial ecosystem, every single organism is either hunting or just desperately trying to avoid becoming a meal.
Because surviving there requires adaptations that are so extreme and so perfectly tuned to the environment that they almost feel, well, alien.
Which brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We've pulled together this massive stack of sources for you, encyclopedic records, research papers, premium wildlife documentaries, to really uncover the hidden mechanics of the Amazon's ultimate predators.
And our goal isn't just to, list terrifying creatures. We want to understand the incredible, chilling strategies these animals use just to guarantee they see another dawn.
Exactly, because diving into this research quickly reveals a really unsettling truth. Danger in the jungle rarely announces itself with a thunderous roar.
Right, sometimes the most lethal threat in the entire basin is barely a centimeter long, or it's silently hiding right inside your own shoe.
Yeah, that is terrifying. I want you to imagine this tiny amphibian, the golden poison dart frog. Biologists named it Philobits terribilis, which, paints a pretty clear picture.
It really does. It's barely an inch long, but it has this vibrant, almost metallic golden yellow color that is basically a giant neon sign telling everything in the forest to back off.
Right, and it possesses venom that is 20 times more toxic than other dart frogs. 20 times.
Yeah, the sheer potency of that chemical defense it's hard to even comprehend. The toxin extrudes directly from these microscopic glands in their skin.
And the sources said just 2 or 3 grains of salt's worth is lethal to a human, right?
Exactly. Just that tiny amount is enough to shut down the organs of a fully grown adult. The indigenous Embera people actually used the sweat of this exact frog to coat their hunting blow darts.
Wow.
And a single coated dart can stay lethal for an entire year.
That is insane. I found myself looking at these papers and just wondering, how does a creature not accidentally poison itself? If you're sweating a chemical that lethal, how does your own biology survive?
Well, it comes down to this brilliant microscopic mutation. The poison works by violently attacking the nervous system, right? It forces muscles to contract until the heart just fails.
Right.
But as these frogs evolved over millennia, their internal wiring actually changed. The sodium channel regulatory site in their nerves physically altered its shape.
So the toxin literally doesn't fit the lock anymore.
Exactly. That infinitesimal mutation makes them completely immune to their own chemical warfare.
So evolution builds this brightly colored frog that walks around like a highly classified biological weapon. But the literature shows this crazy behavioral twist. They are remarkably gentle, devoted parents.
Yeah, nature rarely deals in absolutes, It really forces us to rethink what a dangerous animal acts like.
It's like a helicopter parent, but armed with lethal neurotoxins. When the eggs hatch on the dark forest floor, the mother or father lets the tiny tadpoles wriggle right onto their back.
And then they carry them, sometimes scaling these towering ancient trees, just to find tiny isolated pools of water hidden inside bromeliad leaves.
Right, to keep them totally insulated from ground predators. And the mother will repeatedly climb those same trees just to feed her offspring unfertilized eggs.
Which is a massive expenditure of energy in an environment that ruthlessly punishes wasted effort.
So I have to ask, if they're so tiny and they already use this brilliant elevated nursery system, why did evolution give them such an apocalyptic level of venom? Isn't that just total overkill?
Well, nature never really wastes energy on overkill. That extreme toxicity is the result of a microscopic, invisible arms race. There's a specific snake, Lamedophis epinephalis, that actively hunts them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and over millions of years, as the snake developed resistance to the poison, the frog just had to become exponentially more toxic to survive.
So the snake is the only predator that can actually neutralize it.
Exactly, using a specialized compound in its saliva. It just proves that no matter how heavily armed you are in the Amazon, something is always evolving to defeat you.
Man, if the forest floor is just an endless arms race of chemical warfare, it makes you wonder what's hiding a few feet above your head.
Oh, you mean the canopy?
Yeah, look up into the branches, and you find the bullet ant. Paraponera clavata. It's got this menacing reddish-black exoskeleton. And unlike other ants, there are no worker castes of different sizes. Every ant is huge, and they are all ready for combat.
And they don't just bite, they have a highly visible stinger protruding from their abdomen. A stinger that delivers what entomologists consider the most agonizing insect sting on Earth.
Yeah, on the Schmidt Pain Index, it hits a 4.0 plus Ulco. The scientists who created the index said it feels like walking over flaming charcoal with a 3-inch rusted nail embedded in your heel.
It's just brutal. The mechanism is a unique neurotoxin called ponerotoxin. What makes it so devastating isn't just the peak intensity, but the duration.
Right, it targets the central nervous system.
Exactly. It causes uncontrolled firing of nerve synapses. So the pain comes in these severe, throbbing waves with cold sweats, and it can last for a full 24 hours. Locals literally call it the 24-hour ant.
And it has such profound cultural significance. The Sadere Mawe indigenous people weave dozens of these live ants into ceremonial gloves for initiation rites. It tests physical endurance, turning this feared insect into a tool for cultural growth.
It's incredible.
I was actually watching a documentary on the channel Apex Truth, and they compared it to the Asian bullet ant. They concluded that absolutely nothing touches the sheer, sustained agony of the South American one.
It's the perfect example of how the jungle demands absolute respect. You don't need physical bulk to be untouchable.
Right, but with creatures like that defending the foliage, you kind of want to just avoid the trees entirely. But what happens when the danger is actively looking for a dark place to hide in your house?
Oh, yeah. We have to talk about the animals that rely on absolute stealth. The Brazilian wandering spider.
Scientifically, Phenutria. Locals call it the armadillo, the armed one. It's arguably the most venomous arachnid in the world, right?
Oh, without a doubt. And it refuses to play by the standard spider rules. It doesn't spin a web and just wait passively. It's a highly aggressive, active hunter.
It just prowls the forest floor, running down prey. But when the blinding tropical sun comes up, it needs a sanctuary. And because of the human footprint on the edge of the rainforest, they frequently seek shelter in human spaces.
Yeah, they crave dark, enclosed crevices, fruit boxes, damp clothing, and notoriously right inside your shoes.
And the venom delivers this complex physiological assault. It triggers intense radiating pain, severe hypertension. And the sources highlight this uniquely terrifying symptom, priapism.
Yeah, a painful biological reaction.
What is actually happening in the body when that venom enters the bloodstream to cause that?
It's basically a violent vascular hijacking. The venom contains a peptide called TX26. When injected, it causes a massive unnatural release of nitric oxide in the nervous system.
Wait, nitric oxide?
Yeah, which acts as a powerful vasodilator. It relaxes smooth muscles and causes an extreme, unregulated spike in localized blood pressure. It's a horrific disruption of normal blood flow.
Walking through the Amazon just sounds like navigating a minefield, except the mines have 8 legs and chase you into your bedroom. How do locals even survive this invisible threat?
It requires a cultivated hyper-awareness, generational knowledge, really. You learn to vigorously shake out your boots every single morning, no exceptions.
Right.
You train yourself never to reach blindly into a dark crevice. Survival there is entirely about eliminating blind spots.
So if the land is rigged with neurotoxins and prowling spiders, surely the water is safer, right? Or do the rules just completely rewrite themselves when you get wet? Let me introduce you to the Pirarucu.
Or the Arapima, yeah.
It looks like a prehistoric armored submarine. It can grow up to 10 feet long and weigh an astonishing 485 pounds.
It is an absolute leviathan of the freshwater, and it evolved this bizarre survival trick tailored for the harsh Amazonian climate. During the dry season, the rivers shrink into these shallow, stagnant pools.
And those pools quickly lose all their oxygen, right?
Exactly. Most fish would suffocate in hours. But the Pirarucu developed a highly specialized lung-like tissue lining its swim bladder. It effectively gave itself a second respiratory organ.
So it literally breathes the air above the river.
Yes. Every 15 to 20 minutes, this colossal armored fish has to propel itself to the surface just to forcefully gulp atmospheric air.
When it hunts, it's like a scene straight out of a horror film. It rests silently in the murky water, then it violently opens its cavernous mouth, creating this explosive vacuum suction. It just pulls in fish, amphibians, even birds resting on the water's edge.
And it's not even the only hidden terror in the river. You have the candiru, that tiny parasitic fish that swims into mammalian orifices and locks itself in place with backward-facing spines.
Ugh, yeah, requiring extreme medical intervention.
Or the electric eel, capable of generating a 600-volt biological pulse to instantly paralyze prey. The rivers are this three-dimensional hunting ground where attacks come from below, above, and within.
With all these specialized assassins using toxins and electricity, does brute force even matter anymore? Well, if you want unadulterated dominance, you look at the black caiman, Melanosuchus niger.
Oh, the undisputed king of the waterways. We're talking about a crocodilian reaching over 21 feet and weighing up to 750 kilograms.
The largest predator in the entire basin, and its morphology is a masterclass in nocturnal hunting. The skin is jet black, and during the day, it acts like a giant solar panel.
Right, absorbing the intense tropical sun and storing heat deep in its muscles like a biological battery.
So when night falls and the temperature drops, it uses that thermal energy to power explosive movements while its prey is all sluggish and cold.
And to guarantee success in the dark, their eyes have a reflective layer behind the retina called the tapetum lucidum. It bounces moonlight back through the photoreceptors. If you hit them with a flashlight, their eyes glow with this eerie, fiery red reflection.
Their bite generates 970 pounds of force per square inch. They don't chew, they just grab, crush, and swallow, shattering thick turtle shells.
But just like our dart frog, there's this jarring emotional shift. The maternal instinct in these killers is breathtakingly delicate.
Yeah, profound display of tenderness. The females build these sprawling nests of rotting vegetation. When the babies chirp from inside the eggs, she carefully digs them out.
And she uses those exact same skull-crushing jaws to gently manipulate the eggs, cracking them open to help the young emerge.
She then carries them softly down to the water. But once they hit the river, they immediately become targets for the ultimate terrestrial predator, the jaguar.
Antherodon bunca, absolute stealth perfected.
They wear this rich golden coat with black rosettes that just dissolves into the dappled sunlight. And unlike lions, they operate entirely alone. They're solitary phantoms.
And their biomechanics are totally different from other big cats. They have massive muscular heads, granting them the most powerful bite of any feline.
Right, lions suffocate their prey, but jaguars, their jaws are engineered to bite straight through a skull or a reptile's armored shell, piercing the brain for an instant kill.
Just picture the tension. A sub-adult black caiman resting in the mud, heavily armored. The jaguar stalks silently behind it, stepping as softly as falling leaves.
There's no dramatic chase, just an explosive blur of golden fur and one devastating crunch to the back of the caiman's skull. The cat just drags its armored prize back into the shadows.
It's the ultimate collision of titans. The apex of the water pulled violently into the realm of the apex of the land.
And we can't talk about giants without mentioning serpents. The green anaconda is the heaviest snake on the planet. But the historical records reveal a mystery that makes the anaconda look tiny.
Ah, the titanoboa.
60 million years ago, the Amazon birthed Titanoboa cerugionensis. This serpent was nearly 50 feet long and weighed over 1,000 kilograms.
The largest constrictor to ever exist. It could swallow ancient crocodilians entirely whole. It really shows how this specific environment has consistently bred biological giants.
Which brings up a critical question. We're taught food chains are pyramids, right? But the Amazon operates like a terrifying circle where apex predators, caimans, jaguars, anacondas regularly eat each other.
Yeah, it defies traditional expectations.
How does an ecosystem sustain so many colossal predators in the exact same territory without collapsing?
Through niche partitioning, supported by just an overwhelming abundance of biomass. Yes, they kill each other occasionally, but they evolve to dominate slightly different microhabitats.
So they divide the kingdom. The jaguar takes the dry land, the caiman takes the deep water, and the anaconda takes the muddy swamps.
Exactly. The violence only happens when those invisible boundaries are crossed.
So size and armor clearly dictate the hierarchy there. But what if you lack the bulk of a caiman or the venom of a spider? Is there a biological cheat code here?
Yes. This is where advanced intelligence actually rivals brute force.
Enter the giant river otter. Locals call them river wolves. These aren't the playful little otters you see in kelp forests. These are 6-foot-long, muscular predators eating 6 to 9 pounds of meat a day.
And they compete directly with jaguars and caimans for fish. A solitary otter would be an easy meal. But their evolutionary weapon is their complex social architecture.
They operate like a coordinated commando unit. Living in groups of 10 to 20, they use loud vocalizations to constantly communicate, physically herding schools of fish into shallow water.
That strategic teamwork gives them a 70% survival rate, and that tactical coordination extends flawlessly into group defense.
Right. Researchers have seen black caimans approach vulnerable otter pups. Instead of panicking, the adult otters snap into a defensive semicircle in the water.
They forcefully rush the caiman in absolute unison, snapping and shrieking. The sheer intimidation consistently forces the heavily armored reptile into a retreat.
Commando otters repelling a biological tank.
Yeah.
It totally disrupts our idea of what a dangerous animal looks like. Social intelligence beats razor-sharp teeth.
It really does. And speaking of disrupted expectations, we have to talk about the piranha.
Oh, the most wildly sensationalized animal in Hollywood. The movies show red-bellied piranhas as boiling swarms stripping cows to the bone in seconds. But in reality, they mostly eat insects, injured fish, and carrion.
Right, they're the essential cleanup crew. But between 1999 and 2009, biological inventory work delivered a staggering paradigm shift.
Scientists cataloged an entirely new genus of giant piranhas called tomites. They grow over 50 centimeters long. And the twist. They are entirely herbivorous.
Yeah, they thrive in fast-moving rapids, using their powerful jaws exclusively to graze on aquatic river weeds. A giant vegetarian piranha.
It perfectly illustrates why we have to look past cinematic myths. The true Amazon is infinitely more nuanced than a horror movie. If we pull back and look at all these sources, what are we really seeing?
We're witnessing a finely tuned masterpiece of extreme evolution. Every adaptation, the punotoxin of the bullet ant, the heat-absorbing scales of the caiman, the social structure of the otters, they're all crucial interlocking puzzle pieces.
They keep populations in check, they cycle nutrients, they keep the lungs of our planet breathing. For you listening, understanding this balance offers a masterclass in resilience and adaptation.
And the importance of looking past sensationalized headlines to see the beautiful, complex reality beneath the surface.
Exactly. But before we wrap up this dive, there was one final lingering mystery for you to mull over. We mentioned the extinct Titanoboa, but the Amazon harbors other ghosts.
Oh, the Mapinguari.
Yes. For generations, indigenous oral histories have spoken of a terrifying beast known as the Mapinguari, a giant, lumbering, heavily armored monster with immense claws.
And for centuries, modern science just dismissed it as folklore.
Until paleontologists realized that these meticulously preserved histories perfectly describe giant, armored ground sloths, creatures that supposedly went extinct 10,000 years ago.
The indigenous memory is so vast, it preserved the sheer terror of living alongside a prehistoric megabeast.
And here's where it gets undeniably eerie. Today, deep in the dense foliage, you can stumble upon a paleotoka.
An ancient colossal tunnel system carved straight into the bedrock.
You can walk into the echoing darkness of these ancient caves, reach out and physically place your hand inside the massive deep claw marks gouged into the stone 10 millennia ago.
It's a chilling physical connection to the past.
It really is. It leaves you with an unsettling question. As the twilight falls and the human mist rolls back over the dark water of the world's most impenetrable forest, what else is still hiding out there in the shadows?